Dear President of the Republic of North Macedonia, dear Excellencies, members of the board, dear partners and distinguished guests, a warm welcome to the 10th Annual Macedonia 2025 Summit. My name is Galena Cunningham, and I will be a Master of Ceremonies for the summit. It is a great pleasure that this year we're able to host at least some of you in person. As you know, the focus of this year's summit is digitalization. Today we're going to highlight and discuss critical skills and awareness, aspects of the circular economy, and we're going to celebrate regional success stories and young talents, all through the lens of digitalization. In this spirit, we have also digitalized the Q&A sessions so that we give both the audience in person and online a chance to ask their questions by equalizing the playing field for all participants, and all queries are centralized, whether they come from a participant joining us in person or online. So now I will ask you to please scan the QR code that is on your badges. Alternatively, you can go on slido.com and enter the code M2025 Summit. For those of you joining us online, the QR code is available in the chat. You have to open it and scan it. Please feel free to submit questions throughout the sessions, and they will be read at the end of each panel. Please note that you have the ability to click a like button on questions that have already been posed. Please use this tool, as the questions that gather the most support will be sure to be featured. And now, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to welcome the Chair of the Board of Directors of Macedonia 2025, Michael Shklamovski, to give the opening remarks. Hello, Michael, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Galena. Can you hear me?
Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much, Galena, and good morning, everyone from San Francisco. On behalf of the entire board of directors and to all of you tuning in around the globe, and particularly to those of you in the room live in Skopje, welcome to the 10th Annual Macedonia 2025 Summit. The team has prepared a wonderful program, including some of the leading voices in government, academia, and business. As you all know, we at Macedonia 2025 have some incredibly ambitious goals. Many of those will be achieved through convening, influencing, communicating, and partnering with our stakeholders for the benefit of the country and her people. But there are a few programs that are our own, that we plan, organize, fund, and execute ourselves. We drive superior results, and when we succeed there, it adds credibility and influence to all of our other activities. We started with the Leader Program, which today has hundreds of graduates and is arguably the best program for entry and mid-level managers in the country. We have the Kellogg-Zafirovsky Program, which is not only well on its way to achieving its goal of preparing the next 100 CEOs in the country, but is also cultivating an ecosystem of senior business leaders who have a deep caring and passion for Macedonia. We have the BTOG program, funded and designed directly by John and family for the purpose of stimulating the private economy, connecting the best practices around the globe to local Macedonian businesses, helping them grow and expand throughout the Balkans. And most recently, we have the partnership with the ABF Foundation, where we are funding a significant number of scholarships in a clear, transparent, and repeatable way, 135 in 2021 alone. We have invested heavily and continue to evolve the country dashboard, which ultimately is how we and the country will be graded over time. We've rallied the support of many stakeholders and partners to unite around the platform for a more prosperous future, and together we'll build a stronger Macedonia by focusing on becoming a stronger people, a stronger economy, and a stronger society. As I speak to the board and our benefactors and supporters and others, I can share very, very plainly that we are just getting started. I'm proud of what we've done. I'm proud of how we've done it by staying true to our purpose of values, integrity, and character. And I can't wait, with all of your help, to show you what we will do. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do for Macedonia. I know you will enjoy today's program, and I cannot wait to be with you in person in Skopje next May. And so with that short introduction, I will pass it over to our wonderful CEO in Skopje, Nikita Blazevski.
Благодарам, Майкл, и извини што те разбудивме денес во 4 наутро. Почитувам председател на Република Северна Македонија, ваши екселенции, почитувани гости, присутни во оваа сала, меѓуто оние кои што не следат онлайн. Добар ден, добро утро на оние кои што се онлайн и добро вечер за оние кои што се во Австралија. Добре дојдовте на 10-тото јубилејно издание на самитот, така го нарекуваме само самит на Македонија 2025. Јас се радувам на вистина што повторно сме физички. Една година или минатата година имавме хибриден самит без публика. Верувајте, не беше исто. Ја немаше енергијата, ја немаше динамиката, ве немаше едноставно вас. Јас би сакала, пред да почнам со својот говор, меѓутоа морам да кажам дека говорот ќе биде долг и да се подготвите на тоа. Би сакала да покажеме едно кратко видео, тоа е видео за 10 годишнината од постоењето на самитот, некои testimonials.
I want to congratulate everyone that's been involved with the summit over the last decade. To think it was back to that first summit in Ohrid, to what we have become today, the impact we've made on businesses, entrepreneurs, management, people throughout the country has been very important, but more importantly, how it's extended the reach of Macedonians throughout the world. So congrats, keep it up for another decade. Thanks.
Zdravo na sita. Hi everyone. I'm Anna Arsov, one of the chairs of the Macedonia 2025 Summit and former board member. I cannot be more happy and more thrilled to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the summit. It has been such an amazing event, and I remember very fondly the first summit in Ohrid 10 years ago and the impact it made. And we didn't believe we were going to make it better, and we did. And people came back for it every year in greater numbers. It made even greater impact to the community. Thanks for being with us, and for many more to come.
Hi everyone, my name is Nikola Ljušev, CEO of Makedonski Telekom. I would like to congratulate Macedonia 2025 on its 10th anniversary and express my gratitude for giving me an opportunity to be an active participant in the last 3 editions. Let me wish Macedonia 2025 great success in future, and I'm looking forward for an amazing summit this year. Thank you.
Dobro jutro na sita. On the question of my most favorite memories from prior summits, I'll make a general comment and then a few specifics. Overall, what I enjoy the most is the attitude and the spirit people bring into those sessions, where we put the country, we put Macedonia first. And I would argue we need this now more than ever before. In terms of specifics, I mean, I love the rich and inspiring discussions of very relevant topics. Things like leadership, and how can you forget the presentations from Gary Kramer and Sandy Hogg. Topics like success stories from Macedonia by Macedonians, so many of those we've had over the years. Third, best practices from all over the world: Singapore, Israel, Slovenia, Serbia, Turkey, Germany, the list goes on. Personal success stories from Sami Alaj and from America Dimitrova, but also the overall networking, the mentoring, how people coming together. That's what has drawn me to those sessions before. I hope to see many of you at the hybrid session November 18th, and even more so next year, May 18th to 20th, when we get together in person for the 11th summit. So thank you very much, and hope to see all of you. Mnogo pozdravljeni na sita.
I think the summits are the integral part to the success of Macedonia 2025. The summit that is etched in my mind is our first one, the Ohrid Summit. It was the genesis for our organization of bringing business, government, and civil leaders to work together and to do our part to drive economic growth in Macedonia.
I've been part of the summit almost since its beginning, and it's difficult to share just a single memory. After 10 years of growing together, I can say just this. Thank you for all initiatives. Thank you for being the inspirational place each year where a lot of creative energy was shared towards one goal, making Macedonia a better place. Happy anniversary.
My favorite memory of the Macedonia 2025 summit is doing an hour of code with students and President Pendarovski. It was great to see the many happy faces when the projects were successfully completed and the Macedonian flag appeared on the screens. And what's more important is that it's a part of an ongoing effort to promote exposing every student to computer science so they can be better prepared to contribute to society in the future.
Очигледно проявува низ видеата предизвик следниот самит повторно да биде во Охрид. Може да се потрудиме и тоа да го направиме. Ви благодарам уште еднаш на сите што сте тука, на сите партнери кои што возможија да стигнеме до 10-тото издание на самитот. Мислам дека ова е единствена конференција во регионот и во Македонија која што се занимава само со економија која што постои веќе 10 години. Ни посакувам уште многу успешни самити. Инаку би сакала малку да кажам за она што го сработивме изминатиот период. Не знам дали ќе речам да се пофалам, меѓутоа мислам дека успесите се големи и секогаш она што го постигнуваме е со вас и благодарение на вас. Најпрво би рекла дека неколку зборови за Македонија 2025. Значи невладина организација која што велиме дека е уникатна, бидејќи е основана од диаспората со единствена цел да го помогне економскиот развој на Македонија. Постоиме веќе 14 години, основана е најпрво во Америка и Канада, меѓутоа потоа се проширува и во Македонија. Денес нашиот одбор на директори брои 15 членови, главно Америка и Канада, меѓутоа и Полска, Дубај и однеодамна и Македонија. Инаку за оние кои што не знаат, името Македонија 2025 означува цел или желба на нашите основачи до 2025 година да имаме висок животен стандард, да бидеме дел од западноевропското семејство, а тоа е членство во ЕУ и НАТО. Делот тоа е исполнето, меѓутоа очигледно имаме уште многу пат пред нас. Визијата на Македонија 2025 е Македонија да стане водечка економија и најпросперитетна земја во регионот, а мисијата ни е да обликуваме иднината на Македонија преку промовирање на одржлив економски развој, што ќе ги подобри можностите за граѓаните, компаниите и странските инвеститори. Инаку, значи, сите активности на организацијата се околу 4 столба, меѓутоа најмногу би ги потенцирала столбот за поддршка на деловните партнери и компании и столбот за лидерство и образование. Што би сакала да кажам дека нашиот труд вродува и со награди. Такви награди се повелба на председателот Иванов за поддршка на економскиот развој на Македонија, понатаму најдобра невладина организација за поддршка на лидерство и бизниси во Југоисточна Европа, наградата од Токо и така натаму. И искрено, потајно се надевам дека и тековниот председател ќе не закити со уште некој медал. Ова беше потајна желба изразена јавно. Ќе започнам со она што сме го направиле за компаниите. До сега, значи, имаме имплементирано програми за поддршка на бизниси во вредност од 3 милиони американски долари. Организирани над 45 бизнис форуми, меѓународни трговски мисии, настани за вмрежување со околу 1000 учесници. Според наша проценка реализирани се околу 100 соработки на компаниите. Сме организирали, сме помогнале влез на 15 странски инвеститори. Понатаму лобирање и поддршка на економски реформи и програми, како што е всушност и самитот, промени во законодавство, подобрување на деловно окружување, намалување на бирократски товар и така натаму. Понатаму програмата која што ја спомена и Мајкл Чкламовски во своето обраќање, Битов програмата, преку која носиме канадски експерти да помагаат на македонски компании. До сега во 3 години 20 компании ја користе оваа помош, меѓутоа програмата продолжува и понатаму и ова е апел за секој од вас кој што смета дека ваква поддршка би била корисна да аплицирате. И програмата Лидер која што спомна Чкламовски, значи до сега 400 млади предприемачи биле дел од ова мини МБА обука и се надеваме дека тоа возможило или да започнат бизниси или да ги зголемат и да растат нивните бизниси. Вториот столб тоа е образование и лидерство и мислам дека повеќе сме познати по овој столб. До сега сме инвестирале 1,3 милиони американски долари, вклучени биле над 500 предприемачи и млади таленти. Најзначајни во овој домен се стипендиите за извршни директори на Келок, познатата школа Келок, програма воспоставена од Мајк Зафировски. Инаку до сега 25 поминале алумни, меѓутоа целта на Мајк, за наша среќа, е идните 100 бизнис лидери во Македонија да поминат низ ова обука, така што не чека уште многу работа. Понатаму, значи, обуката за менаџери, заедно или во соработка со Шулих бизнис школата во Канада. До сега имаме 34 алумни на оваа програма. Понатаму, добротворниот фонд за талентирани студенти, преку кој даваме стипендии за талентирани млади луѓе, средношколци, кои што доаѓаат од ранливи категории на домаќинства. И исто така доделени се 13 стипендии на Руската академија за национална економија и јавна администрација РАНЕПА. Она што сакам да го споменам веројатно посебно, тоа се нашите нови иницијативи. Оваа година за прв пат доделивме 133 стипендии за студенти на Универзитетот Кирил и Методи преку фондацијата Атанас Близнаков. И ова е само почеток, се надеваме дека секоја година ќе можеме да ги доделуваме овие стипендии. Се надеваме дека навистина ќе го промениме животот на младите луѓе. Изминатото лето за прв пат организиравме Охрид камп за роботика и кодирање или за технолошка извонредност, кој што комбинираше млади од диаспората и од Македонија. Кампот имаше две цели. Едната е да им помогнеме на младите да ги совладат овие вештини, кои што се вештини на иднината, а другата цел е да ги запознаеме нашите деца од диаспората, ова секако е поврзано со самата идеја на организацијата, со младите од Македонија, да воспостават врски, да се запознаат со надеж дека утреден кога ќе станат професионалци ќе соработуваат, меѓутоа и дека нашите трети генерации веќе во диаспората ќе се ја сакаат својата татковина, ќе сакаат да помагаат тука. Посебна чест за сите учесници беше тоа што своите роботи кои што ги креира ги покажа пред председателот Пендаровски. Председатели, за тоа ве држиме дека следната година истото го правиме. Во 2020 година, заедно со 5 други партнери, го започнавме председателскиот центар за политичко образование. При тоа да кажам дека пред еден месец ја завршивме првата школа за политики, благодарно секако до сите партнери во оваа организација. Се надеваме дека влијаеме врз поодговорни или креираме поодговорни идни политичари. Понатаму платформата Connect.mk, не знам дали се сеќавате, меѓутоа промовиравме на минатогодишниот самит. Ова е онлайн платформа која што возможува поврзување на македонски бизниси со наши од диаспората, индивидуалци кои што сакаат да им помогнат преку менторирање, преку наоѓање на странски пазари, поддршка за извоз и така натаму. Уште еден апел до сите вас кој не е регистриран да се регистрира. До сега имаме 80 активни корисници и 25 поврзувања на оваа платформа. Се надевам дека следната година ќе можеме да кажеме и конкретни резултати. Еден проект на кој што сме посебно горди, тоа е STEM-увај како девојка или STEM it like a girl. Проект кој што го почнавме неодамна со неколку партнери. Целта е да ги поттикнеме младите девојки да се запишуваат во STEM образование, да започнат STEM кариера, бидејќи се уште постои јаз во кариерите помеѓу младите, односно мажите и жените. До сега се одржани 80 до сега се вклучени 800 млади луѓе во овој проект, меѓутоа што туку почна, ќе работим уште година и пол на тоа. И нешто за што исто така сакам да ве повикам да учествувате, тоа е на онлайн платформа која што ја развивме, се нарекува e-стипендии или e-scholarships, каде што ги наведуваме сите стипендии кои што ги доделуваме, каде што автоматски се аплицира, се врши селекција, меѓутоа платформата е отворена и за секоја една компанија која што сака да додели стипендии, да најде идни вработени, можете да ја користите ова платформа. Сега тука малку ќе застанам и имам едно прашање до сите вас, односно квиз. Ќе ве замолам да ја користите апликацијата која што ја дадовме, која што ви ја представи колешката Галена. Таму има квиз, мислам дека веќе е покажан. Прашањето е што сметате колку стипендии образовни има досега доделено Македонија 2025. Се сноѓате? Значи во делот на квиз, мислам, има полс и квиз. Јас сега ќе продолжам, при тоа да кажам дека сите кои што имаат точни одговори ќе добијат награда. Наградата е 1 час менторирање со членови од нашиот одбор на директори. Се надеваме тоа вредна и многу корисна награда. Инаку досега имаме доделено 720 стипендии, не знам дали погодивте, 200 само во 2021 година и директно сме помогнале на 600 компании. Мислам дека се ова импресивни резултати за невладина организација. Минатата година морам да кажам дека секој се обидуваме да реагираме и на кризни ситуации, така што како организација реагиравме минатата година за поддршка на здравствениот сектор, меѓутоа исто така и за поддршка на младите кои што не можеа да следат онлайн настава бидејќи нема лаптопи и интернет, така што повторно заедно со нашите партнери мислам дека помогнавме и на здравствените работници, меѓутоа и на младите. Подоцна колешката Галена ќе ви представи една нова кампања која што отвараме денес, повторно со цел да им помогнеме на младите да ги подобрат своите вештини. Сега јас сум економист и оние кои што ме знаат, секогаш сакам нешто да квантифицирам и да представам преку бројки. Знам дека е многу тешко една невладина организација да го мери својот ефект или импакт и да го изрази во бројки. Меѓутоа се обидов нешто такво да направам, потоа може и да дискутираме кој од вас би бил расположен да ни даде некој фидбек. Значи идејата е ако 10 компании помагаме секоја година, например 2021 година, и ако тие компании успеат барем 5% да го зголемат својот приход, и ако ова се компании кои што се од средна големина, тогаш годишно правиме ефект или импакт од околу $1 милион. Значи во би рекла песимистичко сценарио. Понатаму, ако 200 стипендии сме доделиле во 2021 година и овие млади луѓе утре ден се вработат и имаат бруто плата од 1000 евра, во текот на нивниот работен живот од околу 40 години би креирале околу 100 милиони евра или 0,8% од бруто домашниот производ. И ова исто така обид да се квантифицира ефектот од лидер програмата за млади предприемачи, во некои наши пресметки околу 20 милиони евра годишно е ефектот од оваа програма. Значи, ова е, разбирам, многу голема симплификација на реалноста, може би е многу погрешно, меѓутоа, реков, еве предизвик до економистите кои што се денес со нас да ми помогнат да направиме некои и подобри пресметки. Исто така би рекла дека верувам дека тоа се само директни ефекти, дека индиректните ефекти се многу поголеми. Се надам дека влијаеме врз создавање на подобри лидери, на поодговорни граѓани, било да зборуваме за извршните директори, било за младите таленти на кои што ги даваме стипендиите. Се надевам дека барем делумно ќе спречиме емиграција на младите луѓе, а дури и да емигрираат, верувам дека ќе си ја сакаат својата татковина и ќе бидат спремни утре ден да ја враќаат, како и целиот наш борд на директори. На темата на самитот, колешката Галена веќе напомена кои се темите, дека зборуваме за дигитализација. Јас би кажала само некои работи или факти зошто дигитализација. Тие кои што подобро не познаваат, веројатно сваќаат зошто зборуваме за дигитализација, меѓутоа за другите. Знам дека дигитализација е buzzword, дека сите зборат за дигитализација, меѓутоа за жал многу малце се прави. Значи ова е график Евростат податоци кои што покажува кој е нивото на дигитални вештини во некои избрани земји избрани земји од ЕУ со кои што сакаме да се споредуваме и Македонија. Значи само 32% од нашето население има барем основно ниво на вештини и дури во регионот заостануваме зад земјите. Значи имаме многу пат да се подобриме во дигитализацијата и дигиталните вештини. А другата причина зашто зборуваме за дигитализација е затоа што минатата година како организација подготвивме така наречена платформа за просперитетна иднина, во која што дефиниравме 7 клучни области кои што сметаме дека се важни за долгорочниот развој на Македонија. Ова се областите, дигитализацијата е една од тие области. Меѓутоа, откако подготвивме платформата, извршивме околу 30 консултативни состаноци со стопански комори, политички лидери, партии и така натаму. И една тема која што излезе од сите тие разговори како тема за која што сите сметаат дека е важна и тема за која што сите се спремни заедно да работат, тоа беше дигитализацијата. Од тука започнавме една иницијатива наречена Дигитална иницијатива МК2025. Имаме веќе работен тим, имаме план за работа и допрва ќе следат, да кажам, резултатите од оваа работа. Сега, во однос на она што веројатно сите го посакуваме, а тоа е напредок на земјата. Морам да кажам дека и покрај напорите, покрај сите заложби, реформи и така натаму, прогресот кон нашата цел, верувам дека целта на сите нас е иста, а тоа е повисок животен стандард, или да бидеме побогати, или да бидеме приближно богати, колку ЕУ земјите. Значи, за жал, напредокот е многу мал. Денес, нашите граѓани или нашиот животен стандард е околу 38% од просекот во ЕУ. Со други зборови, доколку е просечен приход во ЕУ е 1000 евра, во тој случај во Македонија просечниот приход е 380 евра. Значи, имаме долг пат да го изодиме. Меѓутоа би рекла дека, затоа и денес сме тука, затоа и разговараме за можности за напредок. Ова исто така нашата би ја нарекла матрица за следење на економски напредок. Матрицата ја знаат сите кои што доаѓале на самит. Се обидуваме да измериме нашата цел како организација, односно што ќе се случи до 2025 година, дали навистина ќе успееме да покажеме голем прогрес. Би го покажала, малку е комплицирана матрицата, сакаме да покажеме дека е интерактивна и така натаму. Значи, овој дел тука, каде што Македонија споредуваме со земјите во регионот и земјите од Југоисточна Европа, наречени структурни врсници и врсници аспиративни, односно каде сакаме да стигнеме. За жал, ако видите 2020 година, Македонија е скоро кај сите индикатори на дното. Значи, заостануваме и пак ќе речем, имаме уште многу пат за работа и за подобрување. Меѓутоа, мислам дека ова никако не сме да не обесхрабри. Успешни и добри приказни и примери има и кај нас, и самитот секогаш го прави тоа, самитот секогаш представува такви успешни приказни и разговори како да се унапредиме. И мислам дека тоа е одговорност на секој еден од нас, значи и лична, и професионално, меѓутоа сакаме да постигнеме добри резултати за нашата држава, да биде подобро место за живење. Според мене, ако имаме јасна цел, се стигнува лесно до таа цел. Целта ни е јасна, мислам, подобар животен стандард, нема што да разговараме понатаму. Само треба да го најдеме вистинскиот пат како да стигнеме до тоа. Не можеме да не направаме една символика и поврзување со нашиот резултат во фудбал, бидејќи секогаш треба да ги споделуваме успешните приказни резултати, наместо да зборуваме за лошите. И мислам дека, за мене барем, како поранешен професионален спортист, ова има многу силна символика. Ќе ви кажам која е мојата символика барем, дека заедно можеме многу да направиме, доколку сме интегрирани, можеме многу да направиме, дека мора да имаме аспирации, мора да сакаме да ни е подобро нас и на тие околу нас и на државата, и мора да најдеме мотивација. Некогаш внатре во нас, некогаш во окружувањето, некогаш споредувајќи се со другите. Мислам дека денес во светот не можеме да правиме разлика меѓу мали земји и големи земји, да сте мала земја, значи немате ограничување со технологијата и така натаму можете многу да постигнете. Само не смеете да бидете бавни. Значи не смееме да си дозволиме да бидеме бавни. И ќе завршам со зборови кои што пред некој самит ги кажа Вера Ставров, меѓутоа мислам дека се релевантни секогаш кај нас, а тоа е дека не е важно дали одиме лево или десно, важно е дали се движиме напред или назад. Да побрзаме напред. Благодарам. Сега би сакала да го повикам председателот на Република Северна Македонија, господинот Пендаровски, да ви се обрати и ако може да ни каже нешто во врска со можната награда.
Добар ден на сите и пред мојот официјален говор имав намера да се осврнам на една до две забелешки дадени предходно од нашата домаќинка денеска. Една од нив е таа, меѓутоа предходно првата моја забелешка би била или коментар би бил дека мојот говор ќе биде многу пократок од нејзиниот. Второ, во однос на проблематично прашање, твојата искрена кажана јавна желба да добиете медал, како председател можам да ти кажам дека ќе сериозно ќе го земам во предвид тоа. Само што не можам да гарантирам дека тоа ќе го завршиме до следниот јубилеен самит во мај. Почитувани присутни, чест ми е да се обратам на 10-тиот јубилеен самит на Македонија 2025, организација која е основана и водена од успешни македонски иселеници, кои сакаат да и помогнат на својата прва татковина да стане силна и конкурентна економија. Покрај фактот што уште од самите своји почетоци Македонија 2025 се појави во специфичен контекст. Глобалната финансиска криза, што го намали темпото на економски раст кај многу економии, тоа не ги поколеба во намерата да бидат генератор на амбициозни идеи за просперитет на државата и благосостојба на незините граѓани. Тимот на Македонија 2025 не крена раце од проектот, туку продолжи да бара начини како во македонското општество да ја гради културата на конкурентност и квалитетно образование во услови на демократски политички систем и владење на правото. Почитувани, оваа парадигма на препознавање на можности и во најголемите кризи денес ни е потребна повеќе отколку било кога порано. Република Северна Македонија се наоѓа во клучен период од незиниот развој. Минатогодишното членство во НАТО ја постави земјата во сосема нов геополитички контекст, а интеграцијата во Европската Унија ги насочува реформите во практично сите сектори. Тековната глобална рецесија предизвикана од пандемијата според својот интензитет и опфат ги надминува ефектите од финансиската и кредитна криза од 2008 година. Ова да ја наречам концентрација на кризи, како и на многу други места во светот, ги покажа нашите структурни и системски слабости. Ќе ја споменам само актуелната енергетска криза, што прави дополнителен притисок врз економијата, врз компаниите и врз граѓаните, затоа што сме високо енергетски зависни од увоз. Соочени со се во ова, ние имаме само една опција. Наместо да чекаме да завршат турбулентните случувања, треба со двојна енергија да работиме на преобмислување на постулатите на нашиот економски раст и развој. Во тој поглед не сме единствени. Многу национални стратегии и планови ќе мора да бидат ревидирани и прилагодени на новата реалност за полесно и поодржливо пост-ковид закрепнување. За подобра иднина од пресудна важност е да постои една споделена визија за развојот на државата. За таа цел, уште на почетокот на мојот мандат го инициирав проектот МКД 2030 како наша автентична стратешка рамка за развој на Северна Македонија до крајот на оваа деценија. Вклучувајќи представници од сите сегменти во општеството преку МКД 2030, сакаме да ги проектираме долгорочните развојни приоритети на нашето општество. Во исто време, ја поддржувам и националната развојна стратегија 2021-2041, која како следна фаза треба да се надоврзе на МКД 2030. Во овој краток период што го имаме пред нас, мора да ги насочиме нашите заеднички напори кон клучната цел, а таа е да создадеме иднина за граѓаните, особено за младите, тука во нашата земја. МКД 2030 се фокусира на повеќе меѓузависни теми. од дигитализација, децентрализација и демократизација, преку еколошки, економски, аграрни и здравствени политики, па се до образование, наука и борба против иселувањето на младите од земјава. За да биде реално остварлив, тој развој мора да се фокусира на дигитализацијата. Во својот најнов стратешки извештај, Европската комисија ја идентификува дигиталната хиперповрзаност и технолошката трансформација како еден од 4 клучни глобални трендови што ќе влијаат на Европската Унија до 2050 година. Во блиска иднина, половина од професиите ќе бидат автоматизирани, а многу професии едноставно ќе станат непотребни. Светскиот економски форум проценува дека поради забрзаната дигитализација на глобалната економија, веќе во наредната деценија, дури 70% од вредноста создадена преку производство и услуги ќе се темели на дигиталните бизнис модели. Во овие процеси, предност ќе имаат дигиталните општества со развиена дигитална инфраструктура и култура на иновативни, инклузивни и одржливи бизнис стратегии. Каде се наоѓаме ние во оваа слика? Според најновите податоци на Евростат од 2020-та, просекот, како видовме пред малку, на дигитализација и дигитални вештини во Северна Македонија е само 32%, додека просекот во Европската Унија е 56%. Иако огромен број од нашите граѓани имаат пристап до интернет, најголемиот дел од нив го користат претежно за информирање и комуницирање преку социјалните медиуми. Неопходно е да ги насочиме нашите напори кон развивање на дигиталната писменост и вештини кај граѓаните, затоа што тие веќе станаа незаменлив критериум за рамноправно вклучување во глобалниот пазар на трудот. Ние не почнуваме од нула. Во земјата постои солиден IT сектор, кој секоја година бележи се поголем раст со креирање на нови работни места и со зголемување на уделот во македонската економија. Покрај намалување на невработеноста и растот на економијата, дигитализацијата овозможува транспарентност, неопходна за да минимизираме можеби најголемата болест за секоја држава, а тоа е корупцијата. Тука ја вклучувам и секојдневната, така наречена ситна или бенигна корупција, која реално ги оптоварува јавните услуги, но уште повеќе високата малигна корупција поврзана со организираниот криминал. У прилог на оваа теза, доволно е да го погледаме четвртиот глобален индекс за корупција за 2021, што покажува дека дигитално најразвиените економии имаат најниско ниво на корупција. Зборам за Европа. Освен тоа, дигитализацијата ќе го крене нивото на услуги за граѓаните, ќе придонесе да имаме поточни и навремени податоци за состојбите во државата, ќе го олесни водењето на бизнисот, ќе создаде поволна клима за иновациите, отворањето инкубатори и стартапи и образување на новата генерација дигитални номади. Почитувани присутни, колку и да изгледа несоодветно да се зборува за дигитализација во време кога државата се соочува со сериозна енергетска криза и ценовни шокови, сепак не смееме да дозволиме моментните предизвици да не спречат да го планираме овој неопходен чекор во развојот. Не постојат добри услови за почеток на позитивните промени. Добрите услови ќе бидат резултат на позитивните промени. Успехот на нашата генерација ќе се оценува врз основа на тоа дали ќе успееме да обезбедиме подобра иднина за нашите млади тука, во Република Северна Македонија. Тоа ќе го постигнеме само ако изградиме напредно општество втемелено врз знаења и одржлива економија втемелена врз технологии. Верувам дека со својата платформа за просперитетна иднина, Македонија 2025 ќе биде дел од нашите заеднички напори за трансформирање на целото општество во просперитетно и за оваа и за идните генерации. Ви благодарам и ви посакувам успешен самит.
Благодарам, председателе, што не поддржувате и уште еднаш ќе кажам особено што ги поддржувате нашите иницијативи за поттикнување и унапредување на вештините за кодирање и роботика на младите луѓе. Цело време се секирав дали мајки Марчело се тука, меѓутоа тука се. Јас ќе седнам. И ветувам дека ова ќе биде најмногу од мене што ќе видите денес. Значи, започнуваме со интервјуто кој што го нарековме клучно интервју. Ке ме извините, јас на момент ке се префрлам на англиски јазик, за да биде полесна комуникацијата, меѓутоа брзо ќе се исклучам и тие самите ќе продолжат. So I have the pleasure to introduce the keynote interview and speaker. So Mike Zafirovski and Marcello Clore. Welcome. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Good afternoon, dobar den.
Dobar den, Mike. So it will be quite difficult for me to introduce Marcello, but I would read how world media outlets introduce him. They say he is a billionaire, businessman, Bolivian-American technology entrepreneur and investor. However, I'm glad that today we will have a chance to personally meet you, Marcello. I'm pretty sure you all know Mike, but let me share one internal statistics about Mike. So he is the sole board member who never missed a summit and never missed a single session of the summit. So, yes. So why actually Mike is doing interview with Marcello? I would say that they share many common things. One of them is, I have to say this, they're both successful. Both are with roots from a developing country. Both are great leaders, men with great hearts, and certainly lovers of sports. So Marcello and Mike, thank you for joining us today. Apologies for being a bit late. We are really honored to have you. And now I give the floor to Mike, actually. But I would start with the first question, which is, can you please tell us how you've met? Can you share that?
First of all, Nikica, благодарам на сите. I really wish I was there in person. But it's such a pleasure to see you again, Marcello. And when I think of entrepreneurs and great executives, determination and perseverance is probably quality number one when I look for in a person. So I think follows your question, Nikica. Maybe you can tell us the story how we actually not only met, but our run in Mexico City about 20 years ago. And I think that's going to give people some sense of the perseverance that you have, Marcel. But again, great to see you. It's always such a pleasure.
Thank you, Mike Zafirovski. And when Mike asked me to basically do this interview, I could never say no to Mike because he's been a great friend, a great mentor, and somebody who's been a tremendous influence in my life. And when I started reading about Macedonia as a country, North Macedonia, it's amazing the similarities to where I'm from. I'm from Bolivia, which is a small country in the middle of South America, surrounded by a lot more powerful countries. So I would say we share the similarity of where we came from. And I always tell people that, probably Mike and myself were a mistake. Like we are not supposed to be where we are. We are not supposed to have the experiences that we have had, because it's rarely that you have a North Macedonian who's gone outside of his comfort zone and has led, some of the most iconic companies or been part of the most iconic companies in the world, and has been I would say, one of the great leaders of mobile technology that has pretty much revolutionized our life. So for that, it's good. And a Bolivian is definitely not supposed to be leading one of the largest investment companies in the world. So we're a mistake, and hopefully that mistake will serve to be an inspiration, to a lot of people in my home country in Bolivia and to a lot of people in North Macedonia. So I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've been an entrepreneur since I was very young. And one of the first business I had was a company called Brightstar. And Brightstar became as a distributor of mobile phones. That's how we got started. And a distributor that caused a lot of trouble because we were not authorized to sell mobile phones by anybody. So we found pricing inefficiencies all over the world from large manufacturers. And we found that in that case, Motorola used to sell phones at a different price in Canada or in China or in Europe, different prices. So we just basically bought phones and sold them all over the world. And we became very large that we caught the eye of Motorola, and then Motorola, which Mike was the leader there, started allowing us to buy phones and started to resell them. And I really wanted to get to Mike one way or another because he was the big boss of Motorola, and nobody let me get to Mike. Mike was the big boss, and the maximum I could get was, I think, to one of the salespeople of Motorola in Latin America. But Motorola made the mistake of inviting me, I remember, to a Formula 2 race or 3, because back then there wasn't Formula 1 in Mexico City. And I got to see Mike from very far away. So as a good entrepreneur, just approach Mike and ask him, what was he doing? And I had heard that he was a runner. And I asked Mike if he wanted to run with me in Mexico City. And, I wasn't a runner. I could hardly run. But Mike agreed to run with me in Mexico City. And
6 o'clock in the morning, right?
6 o'clock in the morning. Mexico City is very high. It's like 2,000 meters or 2,500 meters above sea level. And I had an opportunity to run with Mike. I was not a runner. Mike was a very fast runner. And I kept up with Mike. We even left a bodyguard who couldn't follow. And I remember we ran for exactly 46 minutes because Mike was 46 years old back then. And I think I caused a good, we built a friendship. We got to know each other. And that allowed me to know Mike. And Mike took a huge bet on me. I remember that, Brightstar had very little money, but Mike was very kind to approve a line of credit of $300 million. And because of that, Brightstar grew to be one of the largest. Brightstar up to today because it's still the largest Hispanic company ever founded in the United States, and more importantly, became the largest distribution company and supply chain services in the entire world. So it was, people like Mike that took a leap of faith in me, that believed in what I wanted to build. And at the end, you can say that he risked his job, because if I would not have paid Motorola those $300 million back, Mike would have been in trouble. And we actually did that. And I always say that, life is full of these moments that we all face, these life-changing moments, and we got to take an advantage of those. And Mike was the one who gave me that opportunity. I took advantage of it, and that was probably one of the biggest stepping stones in my life to determine of who I am today. So that's why I'm forever grateful to Mike for having taken a chance with me.
Well, Marcelo, I know you love to mentor people as well, but as a human being, there's actually nothing more personally rewarding than to see that you can make influence on others. So thank you very much for that. And maybe just a comment to the people, all the people, whether corporate executives or entrepreneurs. Maybe just an additional element to Marcelo's story was in that 46-minute run, he had his sales pitch ready. He knew exactly what the ask was going to be. He was visualizing it. So many times in your life, people may even call it elevator speech. But if you really can visualize you really want something, and if you come in front of the opportunity, can you succinctly summarize that? In Marcelo's whole life, in terms of both from Brightstar, but all the activities afterwards, I think it's a perfect example for you to be able to visualize, but then also to have the drive and the perseverance to make the ask simple and compelling to the other side. So anyway, just as I was reflecting on that.
That's true. My mission when we went running was one, that I didn't fall apart while I was running, because that was a high risk. But I wanted Mike to understand that I could help him gain a significant amount of market share if he allowed me to be his exclusive distributor in Latin America. It's a very bold ask, but it was compelling because Mike needed to sell more Motorola phones, so it was a good bet. And that's what allows us to do that. And in my life today, in today's job, that's what I do. I listen to entrepreneurs, 8-10 entrepreneurs a day, and then we make investment decisions. And it is those that have a very clear vision of what they want to accomplish and how they're going to accomplish that we make bets. And at the end, in the investment world, or pretty much in all of our lives, right, we make bets on people, whether we're going to promote them, whether we're going to invest in them, based on their ability to visualize, what their plan is.
Marcelo, I know Macedonia and Bolivia are similar economic development opportunities and challenges. Although you guys are quote unquote huge, at 11.7 million, I think you're 6 times the size of Macedonia, but still similar challenges. How do you view digitization opportunities? Is that a opportunity, if you will, or is that a unnecessary burden at this point of time in the development in the businesses in those two countries?
Yeah. So I think, we at SoftBank, we look at life a little bit different. We look at, there are different revolutions that happen in life. And every time there's a revolution, there's a new opportunity that comes to everybody. We go back to the in agricultural revolution or the industrial revolution. And you and I were very lucky to be part of the mobile revolution, where we actually, whenever you put a mobile phones in the hands of a consumer, amazing things started to happen. Productivity went up. There's just some great things that happened. After that, we started to live the internet revolution, which was powered by the mobile phones. The fact that we all have a computer in our hand, I think the penetration in Macedonia is close to 80%, so pretty much everybody has a mobile phone. We become much more efficient and we can do a lot more things. And today we live what we forecasted what we call the AI revolution, and that is the power of the internet basically exponentially grows the moment you have AI. Why? Because there's more memory, there's more processing power, so a machine becomes more and more smarter. And right now we're in the middle of the AI revolution that because of the pandemic, it got massively, massively accelerated. And the message that I want to leave here is it was the last 5-10 years, it was very hard to do massive innovation and disruption because only two things got disrupted. Advertising, you have the rise of Google, the rise of Facebook, who basically destroyed your traditional advertisers. And secondly was e-commerce, companies like Alibaba, companies like Amazon, that basically disrupted retail. But that's it. Everything else stayed the same. The way we got educated stayed the same. The way we got treated for diseases stayed the same. The way we got transported stayed the same. And because of the AI revolution, we believe that in the next 5 years, every single thing is going to be disrupted. The way we work is totally disrupted. We've seen it through what are we doing today. It was unheard of talking to from New York to Macedonia, you and I sitting here, right? And the way we communicate with people, that massively changed. The way we buy stuff massively changed. I mean, today, nobody cooks in my house. Everybody orders utilizing Uber Eats or utilizing DoorDash. Soon, the way we move is going to be via autonomous vehicles. The way we educate our kids is going to be more intelligent in a way that you can have an individual, specialized education based on what your strengths and your weaknesses are. The way we treat diseases is going to be utilizing intelligence, not seeing a doctor that sort of looks at you and says, hey, this is the way to fix you, but actually utilizing data, utilizing genomics, utilizing artificial intelligence. And these are just examples of how the world is going to massively, massively change. There's not one thing that we do today that is not going to be different in the next 5 years. So that is very important because that opens incredible amount of opportunities. We at SoftBank invest in 6 or 7 companies a week. We invest $1 billion a week into all these entrepreneurs from all over the world that are basically bringing innovative and disruptive business models. And the entrepreneurs are so capable of identifying inefficiencies that they're able to utilize technology to fix those inefficiencies. So I look at the fact that this is just the beginning, is minute one of a 90-minute match in football of disruption, innovation, the way we change. It just opens opportunities for entrepreneurs that in the past you had to be in Silicon Valley to be an entrepreneur. And today, the world is so large and we're so connected that it really doesn't matter where you are. So the challenge that I set up for Bolivia was I want to see a unicorn. A unicorn is a company is worth more than $1 billion. And I'm amazed, just in Latin America alone, just to keep it close, I've invested in unicorns in Ecuador, which is a small market, in Chile, in Argentina, in Colombia, in Mexico, in Brazil. And my dream is to basically see a unicorn in Bolivia. And the same thing needs to happen in North Macedonia, is to go find those entrepreneurs that are willing to utilize technology, because in the internet world, there are no barriers, there's no frontiers, there's no borders. You're basically allowed to run a company all over the world, sitting in your desk wherever you are. So I think this new AI revolution that we're living, which is the AI of disruption, is going to be the most exciting times in the history of mankind. I think the next 10 years, there's going to be more change than the last 200 years. So it opens an incredible potential of opportunities for entrepreneurs who want to disrupt the way we work, the way we live, and the way we play.
And what comes first? Is it the ideas or the funding? I mean, quite often you hear the need for venture capital or bank financing. Obviously, you're fixing that directly, if you will, for parts of South America. But sometimes I'm just curious to get your sense of the ideas that are coming from the developing world relative to what you may see in the U.S.
Yeah. So this is something that I've tested, right? You know, in my job as being the CEO of SoftBank, I lived in Tokyo when we started deploying Vision Fund 1. And Vision Fund 1 was the largest, it was a 100 billion technology fund that our goal was to disrupt venture capital. And it bothered me that all I saw were Chinese entrepreneurs, Indian entrepreneurs, and American entrepreneurs. Very little European and very little Latin American entrepreneurs. So I took a plane, I went to Latin America, and I realized that the quality of entrepreneurs were there, you know, but they were lacking ambition. They were lacking ambition because there was no capital, because they were scared. They were running a business, you know, at a very low RPM or with a brake always on, because they say, what happens if we build this business and we run out of money, we're going to go bankrupt. So I launched a $5 billion Latin American fund, and I'm amazed, I'm blown away. When I went to Latin America in 2019, the total amount of venture investing was 1.5 billion. Today, 2 years later, the total amount of venture investing is 28 billion. It's like grown 14 times. And the quality of entrepreneurs were there. The problem was there was no capital. And there was something wrong because Latin America is only half the size of China, and China had $100 billion of venture investing. So it was the lack of capital. And I think that applies a lot, you know, to smaller markets like North Macedonia, where I have no doubt that there's an incredible set of talented entrepreneurs, but the problem is the venture world is not there. So I think it's a combination of those. Now, the beautiful thing is there has never been more venture money today in the world. So if there's great ideas and there are great entrepreneurs, you know, there's always capital to help fund those ideas.
Thank you for that. And also, I mean, as we're preparing for this, you told me about your brother. Maybe just a short summary of his business, obviously working with you, then going on his own, taking a small idea, and all of a sudden that's, I mean, again, a very practical example of what's possible in a very short time.
That's a very good example. So I have a younger brother who figured out that the world needed an internet vocational school, meaning you can learn the things that nobody teaches you. How to be a chef, how to be a better driver, how to operate a tractor trailer, how to be a plumber, how to do those sort of jobs that, unfortunately, in the United States, those jobs are filled by the Latino community. But you just show up and you learn on the go, so they were never done. So he started a business from zero. He started offering those courses. First, he learned how to cook. And today, he holds the largest internet-driven vocational school where he's graduating 70,000 students a month.
Wow.
So, and he's growing and growing. And he started as one guy with one computer.
Out of Miami or Bolivia?
Out of Bolivia. Well, now he's in Miami. Now he operates all over Latin America, all over the United States. Now he has 500 people call centers, and all those things. But it shows that example, and I think the company is worth, you know, several hundreds of millions of dollars. But that shows that you don't need to. You know, you can be sitting in North Macedonia, come up with a great idea. And I will tell you one thing that I was studying North Macedonia a little, is you guys have something very positive. You have a very high internet penetration.
Yep.
You have a very high bank account. You know, 80% of people bank. You know, very little credit card penetration, but very high internet penetration, which means, you know, you have the basic things in order to be an entrepreneur. In many of these countries in Latin America, there's still connectivity is very low. So therefore, I think you have what it takes. I think what we need now is we need venture money and we need ambition. And if you have that, you know, there's no doubt why you cannot create these amazing entrepreneurs.
I do think one very generic comment, but lots of the entrepreneurs in developing world are very cautious or reluctant to give up equity in their companies. I mean, they own everything. They're very concerned about going bankrupt. At least what my advice has been, I'd love to get your take on it, is that, I mean, 100% of very little is very little. But if you get the right venture capital partners, obviously that's a great way to help you grow the company. Do you have a perspectives on that?
Yeah. So our belief at SoftBank is entrepreneurs should be focused on building a great product that is solving a big problem, learning how to take that product to market, but they should never be worried about how they fund the business. And, you know, that's our job as venture capitalists. We like to call us SoftBank vision capitalists. You know, we like people that come with a vision and we will fund them. And once you do that, it's a very powerful combination when you have a capital partner that will provide you with the necessary capital that you need to grow a business. And, and the world is, I would say, the world is easier today. I mean, I remember when I was an entrepreneur, there was no venture capital. I mean, you had to, my venture capital was Motorola.
Not for distribution companies anyway, yeah.
So it was very hard. You had to go find banks, you had to go find people who believed in you had to go to your friends and family and all that. Today, the world is relatively easy. If you have a great idea, if you prove that you can execute, there's excess amount of capital. Whenever a great entrepreneur shows up that has a great idea and a great company, today we fight. The entrepreneur gets to decide, who do I want to take money from? And obviously everybody has a different competitive advantage, but the world has changed and the world is thirsty and hungry, the venture capital world, for great entrepreneurs that have an ability. So, to those in the audience that are entrepreneurs that have that desire to build a business, I would say there has never been a better time in the history of the world to be an entrepreneur, because there's capital and there's everything open for disruption. Imagine, you can just show up, and with the help of technology, there are so many problems that you can solve with technology, and that's what the world is, that's what the world is looking for.
You probably get 1,500 emails for ideas to SoftBank after this interview.
Good. It's easy. Marcelo@softbank.com. We're always looking for great ideas.
And by the way, we're calling from the headquarters of WeWork downtown New York. We do have a Macedonia 2025 coffee mugs.
We do.
And as we were preparing for this, Marcelo, we did not specify which date, but Marcelo did make the commitment to come and visit us in Skopje, and hopefully in a not too distant future.
I'd love to. I mean, one of the most exciting things for my job is to get to travel around the world. And today, I would say, last I looked, we're in over 100 countries with SoftBank, and our companies transact with 3.5 billion people every single day.
Wow.
And I take a lot of pride of saying that I've been to most countries in the world, and Macedonia is not one of those. So
good.
I was lucky to go to Gibraltar a few weeks back to launch our crypto bank. But, Macedonia is definitely one of the countries that is not that I haven't visited, and there's nothing more exciting in the world than landing to a place that you've never been to. It's
Yeah, I'll ask you about crypto after this next question, but obviously you're executive chairman for WeWork. And with the pandemic and technology, the future of work is changing rapidly. I mean, CEOs cannot even determine what is the best way with a remote work hybrid. Love to get your perspectives, obviously, both as an executive in general, but also as a chairman of WeWork.
Yeah.
Any thoughts and perspectives of, quote unquote, what is the future of work?
Yeah. So WeWork has been probably one of the most fun turnarounds I've had a chance to do. And that is a perfect example where in the world it's 10% ideas, 90% execution.
Yep.
WeWork was founded by an Israeli, Adam Newman, who had an incredible vision. And that is, if you're a businessman and you're starting a business or you're a small business and you want to open your first office, think about it. You go to one of these landlords, they ask you for a 10 to 15-year lease. They ask you for a letter of credit to guarantee the rent. You got to go hire an architect. You got to go hire a builder, and you got to build your space. And you have no idea how big you're going to be. So in many cases, you're paying rent for bigger space than what you need. And it's painful because when you start a business, you have no idea how big you're going to be. You have no idea in how many countries you're going to be in this global world. And then secondly, work is a lonely place, right? If you have your own office, you interact with 5, 6 people. So Adam came up with the idea is we need a community. We need a place where all the small and medium business will have their office. They pay 1 monthly rent. They don't need to worry about building. It's all built out. It's beautiful. And then in the center of it, there's a community. And a community means people at 5, 6 o'clock, people leave their office, they all come, they all talk, they all brainstorm, they all help each other. So that was the initial idea. An entrepreneur with a great idea with no capital. So he came to SoftBank and we loved the idea. So we actually invested $10 billion and we told Adam, grow your idea. So against all odds, WeWork opened 1,000 buildings in 2 years, right?
Wow.
put things in perspective, it took Marriott 125 years to open 800 buildings. So this was done in 2 years. I think Adam's strength was vision. In the execution, he got a little distracted, and that's when I had to come in. And we have basically fixed WeWork. WeWork now is a public company. WeWork is going to be profitable next year. But now we run a very tight company. And we got very lucky in the pandemic because the pandemic changed the way we work forever. You know, people realized that they could do a lot of the same job they used to do in the office. They can do it at home, but they also have a need to come to the office to do conference calls, to just get out of home and all that. So the new trend of work is what is called a flexible workspace. It's a hybrid work where half of it is done at home, half of them is done at work. Another thing that has happened is a distributor force. In the past, there was this concept that everybody had to work in an HQ, which is pretty, not necessarily the smartest thing, because even though you work in an HQ, you just meet with your own little group every day. So employees are demanding, I say, we don't want to go, if we want to work for Facebook or Google, we don't want to go to San Francisco. We can basically do our job from anywhere where we are. So now you have all these companies who the role of the HQ is totally gone forever. And what has happened is the employers are basically putting offices in proximity to where their employees are. So the world has changed. It used to be an employer world. Today it's an employee world. So the employee decides which company they're going to go work for based on many things. One of them is location. So suddenly, WeWork now, it's experiencing an incredible growth. Our buildings are starting to get full, and the whole concept of a flexible workspace where it's no longer 5 days, maybe it's 3 or 4 days. It's no longer headquarters. Maybe it's an office close to where I am. It's no longer, you know, I have to be in the office, you know, all the time. I can work from home, but if I want to meet with my team, I can go to not an office, to a collaboration center that sits. Today we have the world's leading companies renting a whole floor at WeWork, and they say this is our collaboration center. So if I have 500 employees in Brooklyn, I only need a place for 100 people where people are going to come and collaborate. So very different the way work is coming back. Some companies have gone 100% remote, 100%. Some companies have gone 50% remote, 50% come to the office. So I think we're living, the pandemic was long enough that it allowed us to teach ourselves that we really don't need to be in an office 100% of the time to be efficient. So a lot of exciting times. Like I said, these 5 years, everything is going to change. And for sure, the way we work is definitely going to change.
Well, I love the way you articulate the business opportunities and the solutions on so many topics, including workspace and the future of WeWork. Very different. You tweeted recently, the more I understand about crypto, the more I like it. Lots of potential everywhere. Can you tell us more about this? And also possibilities for small countries like Macedonia or Bolivia to play a role in that revolution, if you will?
So after the Arab revolutions, it is my personal opinion that the next revolution is what is called the blockchain revolution. And the best way to think about it is the internet allows for the transfer of information. It doesn't matter if you're in Macedonia or you're sitting in New York City. Whenever we're looking at the information that's available to in the internet, it's a democratic information. We all have access to the same information. It is probably one of the less discriminatory forms of existing, because it doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor you are, where you're from, the information is there available for all of us. And that's what the internet allowed us, is the transfer of information. What blockchain does, it allows for the transfer of value. And that's a whole different, it opens what I like to call it decentralized finance. An opportunity that we're seeing is, it is absurd. If I want to send money today to somebody in Macedonia, there's probably 5 to 10 institutions that are going to take a small little piece of somebody who's going to provide FX, somebody's going to provide clearing, somebody's going to provide remittance services, and everybody takes a little piece. And the same thing happens, even if I need to send you money in the United States, there's 6 different people who are going to take a little piece of that. Makes no sense. Today, in the Bitcoin, crypto, blockchain, you know, with decentralized financing, the logic is I send you value, and I send it to you directly, and in the blockchain, it gets registered in a safe way. So therefore, it eliminates it eliminates the constant amount of institutions that have to touch value. So and it's instant, it's immediate. I transfer you value, Bitcoin, some sort of crypto, even fiat, utilizing blockchain, and the money is available immediately, and you get the exact same amount of money. It's logical if you think about it. So I can send something to Macedonia immediately, and in less than a second, they have the exact amount that I've sent it. Try sending a traditional bank transfer to Macedonia today.
I know.
24 hours if you get it, and at least 5% of the money had mysteriously disappeared. So that is the beauty of what's going to happen with the blockchain world. And that's just one example. There's thousands of examples. And today I see that some of the most brilliant minds and brilliant entrepreneurs are basically putting all their energy into what we like to call Web 3.0. Perfect example. Facebook, one of the most powerful companies in the world, changes its name to Meta. It's the introduction to the metaverse. And that is all the innovation for the next 10 years are AI combined with blockchain.
Well, Marcelo, I can go on for another 3 hours, but I have two personal questions, and then maybe a closing question before. I'm sure Nikita has some questions from her side. But I love the way you involve your dad, your beautiful wife, Jordan, your kids, in virtually everything you do. I don't follow Instagram except my kids and their grandkids, but you're the only person my 3 boys have said. You know, Matt, Kirk, and Todd says you have to follow Marcelo. So anytime you look, what are you in Japan, Europe, Aspen? I mean, it is very rarely you're not with your family and with friends. And that seems quite unusual. Most busy executives have a hard time connecting friends, family, and the business. I'd love for you to make some comments on that.
So
any ideas? Because lots of entrepreneurs work 7 by 24.
I like to say that first thing is they're all one of the same, right? And the only way you can do that is if you love what you do, right? And you know, as we get older and we have a lot more experience, I would say that the number one and most important advice that I can give to anybody, doesn't matter if you're a government official, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business person, if you are a stay-at-home mom, right? The only way you're going to be happy is if you love what you do. And if I'm lucky, you know, I'm passionate and I actually do love what I do every single second of my life. So therefore, you're able to mix. To me, business, family, and friends are one of the same. I'll give you it's funny when you said that, this brings to memory where I was thinking, what can I do? I have 6 kids, five girls and 1 boy. And I said, what can I do that's special for my young girls who we've all been in the same place in the pandemic? And finally, Europe opens up. So I take 3 of my young girls to Paris, and I told my wife that I don't want her to come. I just want the father and my 3 girls.
Yeah, great pictures.
And we're in Paris, and in the middle of that, I realized, hey, you know, maybe they got to go do some stuff on their own. So I was able to combine to meet 20, 30 entrepreneurs in the morning. In the afternoon, I'm with my daughters. At night, I'm having dinner with my daughters and entrepreneurs. And at the end of that trip, I discovered that the French are great entrepreneurs. So I ended up investing over $1 billion in 6 companies in France, while my girls had the best time of their life, because that trip is always going to be a memorable one. And that's my life. My life is combining the love what I have for my family, my friends, and the love what I have for my work, because I truly love what I do. So to me, it's one of the same. There's no difference. A day is a combination of friends, family, and business.
Great. Quick thing about sports. I mean, we both love sports. We follow sports. I think we went to the World Cup together, I think, in Korea, in Japan.
Yeah, that's true.
Was it 2002, I think, or thereabouts? Yeah.
Yes.
But obviously, you know, I see you're biking now. You ran the New York Marathon.
Yes.
So how does sports relate to your business and family activities? Any correlation there?
Lots of it, right? So first is you were an inspiration. Mike is an avid runner, triathlon and all that. And I always wanted to do a marathon, even though I'm a 6'6" and I weighed over 125 kilos. You know, I was probably the heaviest and tallest marathon runner.
What do they call them? What is the name for those runners?
I don't know.
Clydesdales, I think.
Probably.
Yeah.
So it was an incredible achievement for me to be able to prove to myself. And what I learned is that probably the most important medicine, the most important drug that we can ever take is exercise, right?
Yep.
Because if you can run in the morning, bike in the morning, or do whatever exercise you do, you just feel so much better the rest of the day. Also, sports is highly competitive. So I am lucky, I own in the second division team in Spain, Girona. I own a team in Bolivia, Bolivar, my country. And I also used to own a Major League Soccer, which is the Inter Miami that I just sold. And that teaches how to be, incredibly competitive. And, it's a dream to be able to assemble a team and see how they're going to play. And I will say, lastly, sports, the most beautiful thing of sports, and especially sports that we all love, soccer or football, is that it doesn't matter how big you are or how small you are.
Yep.
My first job in 1993 was to be the international manager of the Bolivian Soccer Federation, and it was the only time...
24 years old?
23, and that was the only time in the history of my country that we took Bolivia to the World Cup, and we got to open the World Cup in 1994. And that was the biggest lesson of my life, was that taught me that absolutely everything is possible. It's possible for Macedonian to be successful, it's possible for Bolivian to be successful, and I've been following Macedonian soccer, and I'm blown away, how you guys beat Iceland, and
we
how
beat Germany too.
And Germany, and you almost, you're almost there, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you're going to go a playoff, and the fact that, it shows that doesn't matter how big you are. How could a country of 2 million people be able to fight a country of Germany that has tens of millions of people, and that's all they think about Germans?
Yeah.
So that is the beauty of sports. You can achieve, in many cases, achieve the impossible.
Nick, it's as you can tell, Marcelo and I can go for another, probably the rest of the day, but I want to be mindful of the time. You probably have some questions from the audience as well, and at the end, we'll ask Marcelo for any closing inspirational comments for the entrepreneurs. But to you, Nikica.
Thank you, Mai. I believe that everyone enjoyed this discussion as I did. So I would ask 2 short questions because we are running out of time. The first question from the audience says, blockchain and AI are developing fast and will make even bigger gap between people who use and do not use internet. What can be done to reduce this gap in the future? And second one is more general one. It is about what would be the main message of Marcelo to a government of a small country? Like, how can we achieve fast progress? The third one is related to message to entrepreneurs, but you plan to ask that, Mike.
Thank you. So, today you sit in a privileged position, whether you like it or not. Today you're a highly penetrated internet country. 80% of people, 76% of people have access to the internet. In most developing nations, that's not the case. I mean, when I go to certain Latin American countries, they're still on 2G or they're still in 3G, and communications are terrible. So today you do that. I love blockchain because blockchain is open for everybody, right? So, you can be an AI, you can be a developer of blockchain or crypto or Bitcoin or Ethereum, and you can develop applications that will sit on top of that to disrupt. And, some of the leading crypto companies are not sitting in Silicon Valley. Sitting in Argentina, they're sitting in Brazil, they're sitting in some Baltic countries. So I think this allows a whole new wave of disruption that you don't need to be sitting anywhere else. You can basically do it by putting together a good group of people, and that allows you to become a global company without any limitations or without any borders. So I think that will open a whole new potential wave of disruption that will open opportunities for entrepreneurs all over the world, regardless whether you're in a developed nation or an underdeveloped nation. So that's a good opportunity. The message, what can I tell government? I always tell government the same, and that is, you should never fight the trends, right? Today, we live in a world where there's going to be more disruption than ever. There's going to be more revolution through the AI revolution or the blockchain revolution, so you need to adopt it and not fight it. I will give you an example. There's some bold leaders. A tiny country like El Salvador became the first country to legalize Bitcoin as a currency. And it was very simple. It was an easy decision. They say most of the economy of El Salvador comes from Americans, from Salvadorians who live outside El Salvador who want to send money. But we have a little problem. In the middle, if I'm in the US and I send money to somebody in El Salvador, it takes 48 hours. And only 90 out of the 100 you send get there. With Bitcoin, they get it in less than a second, and they get the exact amount of value. So this became the country, the world was like, oh my God, what is this guy doing? And look at that. Now, there's so many different countries that are looking at the adoption of a digital currency as a means to transact, right? El Salvador is a tiny country, and basically they had a leader who took a bold position, says, I'm going to be the first country to make Bitcoin a legal currency in my country. A small, tiny country, Uruguay. You know, one of my things that I'm most proud is I was one of the founders of a crazy initiative called One Laptop Per Child.
Yeah.
We believe we wanted to provide one computer to every children because the internet,
With
again,
Nicolas
Negroponte.
Yeah, that's right.
So it was a tiny country, the government of Uruguay, that said, I'm going to buy a computer. I'm talking, this is like 15 years ago. I'm going to be the first country in the world to buy a computer for each of my kids, right? And back then, that was a very, very bold move, and provide internet connectivity to all my kids and force teachers to change the way they teach and all that. It's a tiny country. You know, I visited the country of Gibraltar, even smaller than Macedonia.
Yeah.
And it is the #1 country to have properly regulated crypto. So you have all of the big banks in the world now setting up, you know, a lot of their people in Gibraltar. So each country needs to choose a competitive advantage. What are we good at? What do we have that's different than the rest of the world? And what big, bold move, you know, we're willing to make. And I love that. I love that because smaller countries can be more agile. Smaller countries, I mean, I only think, you know, we live in a country in the US where nothing can get done because it's a polarized country with two political parties that they care more about each other than the well-being of their country, and nothing can get done. In a smaller country, it's like a small entrepreneur. You have a smaller group of people, meaning you can take action a lot faster. So there's no excuses for being a small country and not punching above your weight.
And Marcelo, I mean, I think you'd be very pleased to hear, and for the audience as well, I mean, a couple of things. When I was at Motorola, actually, we invested in the old WiMAX system.
Yeah.
So Macedonia actually was the first country in Europe back 20 years ago to have a completely wireless across the country. One of the previous governments also bought a computer for most of the kids in the country, so following some of those rules. And as Nikita spoke in Macedonia before we joined, I mean, we prepared a platform for a more prosperous future. And Macedonia also has a very strong political parties, and sometimes we argue they worry more about beating the other as opposed to putting the country first.
But that's normal.
Right, but that's what really we're trying to, we are trying to be that not-for-profit organization that can be influential to really encourage people to think country first. And I think both of us agree that having healthy, well-run businesses with high values is probably among the best assets that any country can have, and always encourage people, whether left or the right. I mean, we use the line, doesn't matter if you're left or right, are we focused on country moving forward or backwards?
Yeah. Now let me give you a clear example of something that I would do, right? That's practical. If you know that the future of the world is going to be driven by AI, and you know that the future of finance are going to be disrupted by blockchain and crypto, if I'm the president of a country, I would change education to make sure that since the early stage, we start teaching our kids what's artificial intelligence and what's crypto, and we embed it in the education at the earlier stages, so when our kids grow up, they're ready to fight in the world. And traditional developing countries were always late, were followers, right? So if I were the president of Macedonia, to be precise, I would make sure that every single one of our kids are learning about AI and learning about blockchain. So that way we're giving them the opportunity to play in the world of what the future is going to be.
Here we go, Nick, it's up.
Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you, Mike, for this wonderful discussion, inspiring.
Thank you.
Marcelo, it will be a pleasure to have you or host you in Macedonia anytime, but especially for the forthcoming summit in May. This is official invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
You too. Thank you.